They say legends never truly disappear, but what happens when one of Hollywood's most respected giants chooses to vanish without a trace? In 2005, Gene Hackman, the towering actor with 2 Oscars, an enduring legacy, and countless iconic roles, faded from public view with barely a whisper. No farewell tour, no final interview, just an abrupt end to decades of cinematic glory. For years, the world wondered, why would a man adored by millions and revered by directors like Francis Ford Coppola and Clint Eastwood turn his back on it all? Theories circulated, gossip flourished. Some claimed he was simply tired. Others suspected a hidden tragedy. Then, in 2018, a cryptic letter to Dustin Hoffman appeared. Another, more unsettling letter emerged in 2024, unearthed from an old desk. Together, they formed a confession that rattled Hollywood's foundations. Was there a darker secret behind Hackman's disappearance? One driven by long-held fears and a haunting prophecy? Join us as we unravel the final steps of a legend's journey into the desert, from his abrupt departure to the eerie letters that revealed the ghost that trailed him. By the end, you may never see Gene Hackman, or any Hollywood icon, the same way again. In 2005, the Hollywood calendar was crowded with award shows and galas, yet the name, Gene Hackman, kept dropping off invitation lists. His assistant repeatedly responded with the same line, "Mr. Hackman respectfully declines." No one knew why. This was a man who had enlivened screens for decades. Popeye Doyle in The French Connection, Lex Luthor in Superman, and later Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven. Each role built his legend, and each film fed an adoring fan base. But in the months following 2004, he simply stopped. Rumors of failing health circulated, but a real estate listing told a different story. His lavish Beverly Hills home of nearly 3 decades was suddenly on the market. The man who had once seemed inseparable from Hollywood was retreating to Santa Fe, New Mexico, a stark desert landscape worlds apart from the city of neon lights. A few determined paparazzi traveled to Santa Fe, hoping to catch him at a grocery store or a local cafe. Some claimed fleeting glimpses, describing him as a ghost in the desert, someone who slipped past without conversation or photographs. For most fans, his vanishing act was a puzzle no one could solve. To understand why his disappearance struck such a chord, you must remember the gritty road Hackman traveled. Born in 1930, he enlisted in the Marine Corps as a teenager. He studied journalism and television production before stumbling into acting. But once he found the craft, he was unstoppable. From Bonnie and Clyde to Hoosiers, he infused each character with rugged authenticity, winning 2 Oscars along the way. Behind the accolades, colleagues occasionally caught glimpses of a private man who spoke sparingly about personal matters. It wasn't that he was aloof. He simply valued a sense of control over his own narrative. Some surmised that the mounting fame gnawed at him, fueling a nagging discomfort he couldn't fully articulate. And then, of course, there was his father's suicide, a tragedy that shadowed his life and shaped his perspective on mortality. Hackman's self-imposed exile might have gone unbroken, but in 2011, GQ magazine managed a rare coup, an invitation to interview the legendary actor at his Santa Fe home. The journalist arrived at a modest adobe residence, greeted by Hackman wearing casual clothes and an uneasy half-smile. They sat on a wooden porch overlooking the desert. The conversation was polite, mostly focused on life after Hollywood. Then Hackman made a quiet, haunting admission. "I dream about my own death more often than I should." Was this simply an aging star contemplating mortality, or a hint of something deeper? The journalist pressed him for clarity. Hackman's response, "I know how it ends for me. It won't be in front of a camera." The remark ignited a flurry of speculation in Hollywood circles. Some believed he was referencing a deeper fear or premonition, but Hackman left the meaning vague, ending the interview before the journalist could delve further. In the weeks that followed, fans debated the significance of his words. Some took them as philosophical musings, while others insisted they hinted at a hidden struggle. The mystery only deepened when Hackman issued no follow-up statements. It was as if he'd offered a glimpse of his inner world, then retreated once again into the desert's protective silence. Santa Fe is a place of ethereal sunsets and rugged landscapes that can humble even the boldest souls. It's also a haven for artists, writers, and those seeking refuge from urban clamor. Hackman's choice of residence was no accident. In interviews predating his retirement, he'd mentioned fascination with wide-open spaces. He once recalled being a child, standing alone in a vast field, feeling both wonder and dread in the emptiness. That same emptiness now seemed to soothe him in New Mexico, Locals rarely saw him. When they did, he was polite but kept interactions brief. One cafe owner said Hackman would come in early in the morning, order coffee, and quietly read. He looked at peace, she noted, but there was something in his eyes, a sadness maybe, like a man waiting for something he couldn't name. The desert, to Hackman, was not just a place. It was a mirror reflecting both his solace and his anxieties, a realm where he could confront his innermost thoughts away from the glare of paparazzi flashbulbs. Though the actor had become a recluse, Hackman maintained a select circle of old friends. Dustin Hoffman, with whom he shared a long-standing bond, was one of them. In 2018, Hoffman made a surprising announcement. He'd received a handwritten letter from Hackman. Only a single line was publicly shared. "If one day I disappear, remember I was happy, but not always." The brevity of the note sparked widespread chatter. Some insisted it was a suicide letter. Others argued Hackman was simply expressing gratitude for a cherished friendship. Hoffman declined to elaborate, calling it a deeply personal message. Nonetheless, the letter marked the first public indication that Hackman was wrestling with inner turmoil. If he was content in his desert retreat, why pen such a cryptic farewell? Media outlets latched onto the story, fueling rumors of terminal illness or emotional crisis. Yet official statements were non-existent, and Hackman himself offered no explanation. Meanwhile, the story dissolved into the background, replaced by the next Hollywood scandal, until a bigger revelation came years later. By 2024, the legend of Hackman's disappearance had mostly faded from daily conversations, although devoted fans still wondered about him. Then came a stunning development. Hackman's former personal assistant, who'd helped manage the actor's affairs during his final years in Beverly Hills, stepped forward with a startling discovery. He told a reputable journalist, again, requesting anonymity for fear of legal repercussions, that he'd found a sealed envelope in the bottom drawer of Hackman's old oak desk, left behind when the Beverly Hills property was sold. The words on the front, in Hackman's neat cursive handwriting, read, "For those who care, when I'm gone." Inside the envelope were 3 pages of handwritten text, a letter that the assistant described as both heartbreaking and chilling. Unlike the brief note to Hoffman, this was a confession, a final manifesto of sorts. The assistant provided scanned copies to the journalist, and though some lines remained redacted for personal details, enough was revealed to send shockwaves through Hollywood. The letter's opening line was striking. "I've always known how my story would end." Dated 2008, it recounted a bizarre event from 1956, when Hackman was still an unknown, working in a roadside diner. Late one night, he heard a voice behind him, a voice that sounded older, almost feeble. He spun around, expecting a customer, yet no one was there. The voice echoed, "You won't die in Hollywood. You'll disappear in the desert." He tried to dismiss it as a trick of the mind, but as his fame skyrocketed, that voice lingered like a prophecy. The letter detailed how each new role, each standing ovation, felt like a postponement of an inevitable fate. "Acting was my craft," he wrote, "but the applause always reminded me of how far I'd strayed from that desert whisper." He also laid bare his deepest anxieties. His father's suicide haunted him. "The men in my family have a darkness we can't outrun." Hackman believed, on some level, that the desert was calling him, offering both escape and doom. Despite the isolation, he couldn't silence the possibility that this was where he'd either find peace or meet a darker end. In the letter, he thanked his wife, Betsy Arakawa, for giving him years of happiness, but admitted her love wasn't enough to quell the recurring nightmares. The final page contained a line that sent chills through those who read it. "If you're reading this, I'm already part of the desert wind." No direct explanation, no roadmap, just a poetic, unsettling close that suggested he had made peace with a destiny bound to sand and solitude. When excerpts from the letter were made public, Hollywood was shaken. Hackman's longtime friends, like Francis Ford Coppola, who had often tried to lure him back for a final film, expressed sorrow and respect. Clint Eastwood reportedly shrugged in quiet resignation, saying, "I always knew Gene marched to his own drum. That's why he was brilliant." Fans, on the other hand, were torn between admiration and heartbreak. Many took to social media to share stories of how Hackman's performances had impacted their lives. Roles like Little Bill Daggett in Unforgiven and Jimmy Popeye Doyle in The French Connection had become iconic. Others debated the authenticity of the letter, wondering if it was some elaborate hoax. But experts who analyzed the handwriting and signature seemed to confirm it was genuine. Critics pointed out that Hackman was still alive when the letter was uncovered. There was no confirmation of his death, They questioned the phrase, "If you're reading this, I'm already part of the desert wind." Did this mean he had expected to be gone before the letter was found? Or was it simply a dramatic flourish from an actor known for his ability to captivate an audience? Regardless, the letter revealed a darker, more introspective side to the man the world had idolized. He wasn't just a star who wanted privacy. He was a tormented soul grappling with a sense of destiny that he believed had been spelled out for him decades prior. In the weeks following the letter's unveiling, a range of experts weighed in. Psychologists spoke about how early traumas, like the suicide of Hackman's father, could cast a long shadow. Others suggested that the voice he heard might represent an unspoken fear manifesting in a moment of stress. Some longtime acquaintances believed in a more supernatural explanation, pointing to Hackman's lifelong gravitation towards stories where fate loomed large. Yet a few skeptics within the entertainment industry dismissed the letter as a cunning PR maneuver, a final attempt to secure a lasting legacy. They pointed out that the letter effectively guaranteed Hackman's name would remain shrouded in mystery. But those close to him fired back, insisting that no one who knew Hackman could see him orchestrating such a spectacle. "He loathed publicity stunts," said one producer. "He walked away from the machine because he found it hollow, not because he wanted to manipulate it." Gene Hackman's filmography remains an enduring testament to his craft. Watching him command the screen in The French Connection, Unforgiven, or The Royal Tenenbaums, one can't help but marvel at his versatility. He was equally skilled at portraying morally gray heroes, villainous masterminds, and offbeat comedic characters. By deliberately stepping away, Hackman cemented his legacy as a legend who refused to let Hollywood define his final act. In modern celebrity culture, dominated by social media and constant self-promotion, his withdrawal is almost revolutionary. It underscores the truth that these icons are individuals first, celebrities second, people with private battles and personal fears that may never align with the demands of perpetual visibility. The more he resisted the spotlight, the more the world seemed to follow him, intrigued by the one star who wouldn't perform his final bow on camera. In the years since the letter surfaced, occasional stories of Hackman's sightings have cropped up online. A hiker claimed to have spotted him sketching the desert hills at sunrise. A local bookshop owner mentioned a polite older gentleman who browsed biographies before quietly exiting. None of these accounts have been confirmed, but they keep the legend alive. Are they real encounters or wishful fabrications from admirers longing to connect with a vanished hero? One Santa Fe resident, who asked not to be named, recalled a chance meeting. "He thanked me for not taking a photo, said something about how he wasn't a memory to be captured, just a man passing by." True or not, such anecdotes add to the mystery, weaving Hackman's real-life presence into a tapestry of rumor and reverence. There's an old saying, "Out of sight, out of mind." Gene Hackman defies it. By removing himself from the stage, he created a vacuum of curiosity that draws people in. Friends say he was never motivated by a desire to be mythologized. He simply sought to control his own end. Fate, in his view, wasn't something to be fought, but rather preempted. Yet here we are, talking about him, sharing theories about a letter that may or may not be a final confession. Is that what he planned all along? To leave behind a puzzle for the ages? Some might see that as cunning, but those who knew him best claim it was never about cunning. It was about peace, about finding a kind of stillness no Hollywood stage could ever provide. In the dusty roads of Santa Fe, a profound question lingers. Can a man outrun his destiny? Or does his destiny unfold precisely because he tries to escape it? Gene Hackman's story is more than Hollywood gossip. It's a meditation on fear, prophecy, and the urge to step out of the spotlight on one's own terms. He may be a legend who left the stage, but he's far from forgotten. Each new generation discovers his iconic performances and asks the same question. Why did Gene Hackman vanish? Perhaps the letters hold the answer, or perhaps the truth lies in the silent desert, carried on the wind that howls across New Mexico's night skies. Wherever he is, whatever he's become, the echoes of Gene Hackman linger. He remains an enduring reminder that even the brightest stars can choose their own horizons, leaving us with questions and awe. He remains an enduring reminder that even the brightest stars can choose their own horizons, leaving us with questions and awe. What do you believe drove Gene Hackman to abandon Hollywood? Was he fulfilling a prophecy or breaking free from a destructive legacy? Share this story, start a conversation, and let us know your theories. Because some legends choose their exit, leaving behind echoes that refuse to fade. And in that sense, Gene Hackman will always remain part of our collective memory.